just to see a little bit, if you don't mind.
Oh, what's that?
Maybe I'll just stick around just a little bit, just to see what they do.
Oh, you can stick around for everything if you
Okay.
like.
Everything.
Like, I must admit, I have to bore them for a bit through talking, but it's fine. Like I say, you can interrupt me when I'm saying things wrong, because I'm making up as I go along most of the time anyway. All right. So what we have then is we're here to do about auditing and inspection. Now, we've just heard a bit about inspection, which is a bit different from auditing. You know, in inspection, you're really going in to make sure they're handling food safely and encouraging them in order to train them and teach them, because a lot of people in the fast food industry or in the restaurant business, you know, they're trained chefs, they're not trained food safety people. And I actually started out as a chef back in 1982, and the food safety training you got was an afternoon, and it wasn't hands-on, it was just somebody speaking, and I never heard anything. So I've seen the restaurant end from the front end about how people cut corners and things like that. And more or less it's the same as you would get in industry. But in industry we do auditing. So why do you think we do auditing? What's the purpose of an audit? So let's think about Maple Leaf down the road. So they have lots of audits, so probably more audits than anybody else. But why? What would be the purpose of an audit, do you feel? Oh yes, please.
Checking the food safe.
Safety is one thing. Oh yes.
Just maintaining standards in general.
Standards? Exactly. It's to do with quality and it's to do with safety. You know, those two things. And the thing about audits is a variety of different audits you can do, and the sort of key point is that one person's standard is very different to another person's standard, and we'll come to why that is later on. So the thing about auditing is that they're really taking the place of frontline inspectors like the CFAA, OMAFRA inspectors in food processing. Because since in 1997 there was that white paper published, wasn't there, which I talked about in class. And does anybody remember what the white paper was talking about? The Clinton white paper on food safety, right in the first lecture. Oh, not everybody went to the first lecture, see. Well, what it was is to overhaul the food safety system, wasn't it? To make the industry more responsible for itself. And there's a reason for that. Can anybody think two reasons why the government would want to step back to let industry look after itself and its own affairs? Oh yes, please.
Takes the blame off of them, I guess, if something goes wrong.
Well, that's a good one, because it takes out the responsibility of the government. So if something goes wrong, the government say, well, we didn't do anything, we weren't there. And it's also to save resources, because the less inspectors you have in the front line, the less money you have to generate, the less tax you have to pay. And the other thing about having ownership is the fact that by having ownership, you don't have to look over the shoulders every day. You're assuming they're in charge, they're doing everything right, and therefore it's fine. So the rise of the auditor, as I call it, really started in 1997. And you know, it got more and more significant up to the present day, where we have the sort of Safe Food for Canadians Act, which essentially is saying no frontline inspectors. All the sort of food safety and quality issues are going to be taken by third party, i.e. a third party auditor. All right. So in 1997, when the auditing started, you know, essentially they had no standards. It was literally saying, well, I expect this from you, I expect that from you. And you might think, well, all I have to do is refer to the food code, which is a sort of regulatory framework which tells you what to expect. But the reality is that nobody had some sort of expectation of standards. So where do you get standards from, do you think? Like, who would set the standards? So the food code, you know, essentially gives you a list to say, well, you know, you should make sure your facility is up to scratch, you should make sure surfaces are cleanable. But who do you think dictates the standards? To a Maple, no, we'll say Maple Leaf is a good example. No? Well, don't you think the customer might? So people like Walmart, you know, people like Metro and there's places like that, they actually would set the standard to say, we expect you to have this standard. So if you're supplying Costco, for example, you have the Costco standard. So can anybody think, though, what's the problem with all these different standards all going about? Oh, you're not really with me today, are you? So say, for example, you were a Maple, we'll say Maple Leaf, because I can't think anything worse about that. You're supplying Maple Leaf is supplying Metro, they're supplying Walmart, they're supplying Costco, what's the word, Loblaws, isn't it? So what would be the problem, do you think? So the customers set the standards, and they're saying to Maple Leaf, yeah, you can supply it if you can meet this standard of safety and quality. But can you see an issue here? Oh, please.
All the standards will be different.
There you are, well done. Yeah, basically you had different standards, which means you need different auditors, which means that you're going to get audits every week or something like that. So what the retailer said, this is crazy, because one, we have to pay those the auditors, even though Maple Leaf have to pick up the bill. And it just puts too much resources into it. So what the retailers did is get together into something called the Global Food Safety Initiative, called GFSI. So GFSI was specifically designed so a set standard was in place. And I don't expect to know all of this, but what do you think they would look for? Like, there's a list of 18 different areas that this standard refers to. I'll give you a clue. One is pest control. What would be the other sort of ones you feel? Oh yeah.
Recall?
Yeah, your recall plan. And then you've got traceability, construction, food handling practices, GMPs as we call them, and the list goes on. So what the GFSI was a way that a company could get certified as GFSI, SQF, we call it, BRM, into a global standard. And the main purpose of that is they would need a reduced number of audits, but in reality, some people say the audits have increased and increased stringency, but that's another question. All right, so like I say, what we have is different audits going from first party audit, second party audit and third party audit. So does anybody know what a first party audit is? Has anyone heard of all this before? All right, fair enough. So the first party audit is totally internal. So when we say internal, it doesn't mean to say you can get somebody from, say, GFTC to come and do it for you. It's just that the results are kept within the company. They're not released to anybody. And you would do this first party audit just to see how the process is working, if there are any deficiencies. And it's a fairly deep audit. So this is where they might get myself in, for example. I was called in to a sort of major producer a few weeks ago just to go over. It's the third set of eyes, essentially, just have a look at the operations. And I can't tell you what I found, even though I found something interesting. So first party audits are those which are within, internal. Then you have second party audits, which are very different. Second party audits are essentially where you go and audit a supplier. So you would go and audit a supplier, and why would you want to do that? Why would you want to go to see a supplier of Maple Leaf, for example, if you want to call it an example? What would be the purpose of that audit? All right, fair enough. Well, really, what you want to make sure is that they've got a quality standard, isn't it? They've got procedures in place that ensures the quality of the ingredient they're going to send you. You want to make sure they've got a recall plan, because when all hell breaks loose, they'll be calling you and you'll be calling them. And you want to make sure they've got traceability, the sanitation, the standards. And then we have something called the third party audit. And this is the third party audit is where all the money's made. GFTC, for example, which is just next door to Food Science, they have an army of auditors. Other companies spring up and they're all auditors as well. And it used to be really big business. And the thing is, you could go out tomorrow if you really wanted to, and you could set your own business up as an auditor. There's no qualifications required. And this was the issue back in 2000 and the late 1990s. you basically had auditors coming in who had no qualifications, well, maybe a degree or something like that, but they had no sort of formal training, and they could set themselves up as an auditor. You know, when you're a PhD and you graduate with a PhD, you can't find a job, which is normal. You set yourself up as an auditor, it makes it sound better than saying I've been unemployed for 5 years. So auditing is a very subjective, and there is this move to try and get them standardised, but it's still not there. You, like I say, you can go there. So, given the first party audit and the second party audit, what do you think the third party audit does? All right, fair enough. Well, basically, this is the independent audit, isn't it? They'll come into your facility. Sometimes you want certification. And when we talk about certification, what we're really saying is a license to say you've reached that standard. So, for example, if you're in the Global Food Safety Initiative in North America, you look for the SQF standard. And there's 5 different standards within the SQF. And so an auditor could come in and look around and say, yes, you've reached the mark, past the top, and you're good to go. And that GFSI badge essentially means you can supply to a wider range of people. It's a sign of quality, but we'll talk a bit about why that's not always the case later on. So the third party auditor then really is sent by a retailer, for example. It's paid by the actual company. It's not paid by Walmarts of the world like that. These are actually paid by the company themselves, and they'll make an appointment, and they'll come in and they'll go round and they'll just look for quality issues and food safety issues. So, as I said, what the sort of current policy is that those third-party auditors are taking the place of frontline inspectors, for better or for worse. So these third-party auditors report back to their masters, which are the retailers, but are they obliged to report back to the government if they see something really bad? Yes or no answer? I'll give you a clue, yes or no? No one wants to play today, all right then. No. Well, they don't. That's the thing. Auditors don't need to report back to the government to say, God, I've just seen a dead rat in that in hold. Now that's going to change under the Modernisation Act, even though the Act itself hasn't got any regulations yet. But the word is that, as a sort of auditor, you're obliged to report any infractions. Now, can you think why you would not do that? Like, why would an auditor suddenly whistle blow on Maple Leaf, for example? All right. Well, who's paying them? No, because what you've got to appreciate, the auditing business at the moment is very diverse. I can think of 5 in Ontario alone. If you give a company a bad audit, what they're going to say, the one's going to be non-cooperative again, and the other part about it is that the company will just move on. They're paying you, so they'll just pay someone else to give them a good audit. And you might think that's crazy, it could never happen. But there's a few outbreaks that it did happen. Can anyone remember the Jensen brothers and the Cantaloupe outbreak? All right, I won't go through it because I'm boring. I can see some of you falling asleep already. But in the Cantaloupe outbreak, there was Jensen brothers, and they're in Colorado. And what they did is they wanted to go organic. So by going organic, that means use manure as fertilizer, took chlorine out of the water. And an auditor from Primus Labs, which is the biggest auditing company in the US, they went down there and gave them a 98 out of 100 in terms of auditing score. You think that's good. 2 weeks later, they had one of the biggest outbreaks of listeria. And when everything settled down, the FDA went in to investigate. They found rusting equipment, poor sanitation, boxes used for animals and produce and all things like that. And the question was, why did the auditor miss them? And their excuse is that auditing is not for food safety, it's for quality. Even though you would assume that it is for safety as well. And they went in when the plant wasn't operating. And this is one of the issues with auditing, is that you're given so much lead time. Companies are literally shut down for a period of time in order to get ready for the audit. And so it's auditing day. And when a foreign auditor comes in, of course, Food Modernisation Act, you have foreign auditors coming in. The actual CFA will help you, will close the plant down for a week just to get ready. And this is the weakness of audits, is that one, that it can be impartial, and two, it's like getting through audit day, a day out, whereas not everyday practice. So third-party auditing has got its sort of weaknesses, but, you know, so the beef, it's what it is, isn't it? And this is why people say that food safety is going to be in crisis in a few years, because all the CFA inspectors will be in the office doing things. Anyway, so we'll get to what we're doing today, because I think I'm going on too long again. So we're not in Maple Leaf today, we're in a sort of kitchen, and as Teresa said, this kitchen actually is used for training purposes. It's very similar to a commercial kitchen, except there's not mad dashing about, there's not stuff piled up. Because when you do inspections in reality, you do them in the busiest hour. You don't do it before, or you don't do it after the busiest hour, because you want to see what's happening during food preparation, which is a key part, isn't it? And there was a programme, well, not a programme, the CTV are doing a series on about food inspections and that. So it was the first one last night, there's one tonight, and I think there's one tomorrow. So if you go onto CTV News Kitchen, you'll be able to see it. But that just really tells you what the prospect is. So what we're doing today, though, is that we're pretending that it's a busy time. Well, we always say it's a busy time. This is a kitchen, this is what you've got to do. And what you have to try and do is look at the food safety violations. Obviously, we can't look at people in action, because that's really when all the mistakes happen, when you've got people working, taking shortcuts. You've basically got a snapshot here. Now, when you do an inspection, you've got various tools. What's the best tool? Well, not the best tool. What's the different tools you can use for when you're doing a food inspection? All right, please.
Checklist.
Yeah, so you've got a checklist. You're on the checklist of what you're going to look for, which is always good. I hope you've got. Did everyone bring that with them today? Good. Yeah, that checklist was actually taken from Public Health, but you've got to adjust it sometimes to fit something else, and we'll talk about the checklist. So you're stretching your arm.
Oh, sorry. Maybe the thermometer.
Very good. Yeah. So when you go in as an inspector, you've got various tools. The thermometer is a very important one, because especially when they're in process or when they're in service, you can check the temperatures of the product. So you can check the temperature of the holding. So thermometer is a good one. I must admit I was going to get the flash one, but I forgot it. So what's the other tools you can use? Well, your eyes, isn't it? Your eyes, ears, and, well, not ears and much, to smell. So your eyes can tell you a lot, because what you're trying to do with inspection is really you're trying to look at those sort of deficiencies, like chance of cross-contamination, sanitation, the actual can surfaces be clean, and so these are sort of things you focus on. And the other tools you have is a black light. So the black light is just a UV light, quite a good one, this one. And what you'll find is debris, organic material, will actually show up as fluorescence. So obviously it's good to have a room dark when we do this. But you use the black light to see inadequacy of sanitation. So with the black light, then if fluoresces material, which can be from animal origin, human origin, but it's a very good way of seeing are the sanitising good. If a surface looks clean, is it actually clean? So that's what we use a black light for. Now, if you're really posh, what you'll have is an ATP meter. So the ATP meter, I don't know if you remember a few lectures ago, we talked about luciferase reaction. Does anyone remember that? Oh well, hopefully. And the thing is quite useful, because you would have thought that, what could the discovery of bioluminescence in a squid do with sanitation? But it's exactly what it is. So in this tube here, what you have is a fatty acid, you've got an enzyme called luciferase, and the only thing you need to add is ATP. And the ATP comes from what? Okay, the bacteria on the surface. So What you can do is get an estimate of the sort of contamination on the surface, and these are very useful tools, especially what we call pre-operation, i.e. before you do the cleaning and after cleaning. It tells you if you're doing good or bad. Now it's an indirect measure, but typically in terms of scales, if you've got a score of 300 it's clean, 300 to 1,000 it's caution, anything above 1,000 you start questioning. So this is a very good tool for that in terms of saying, well look, this surface is clean, I'm going to test this out. And the good thing about it is that you can do the test in front of them. And it's a very effective tool for training, because say you can say it's clean and you can take a sample, and if it's over 1,000 you can say, well, is it clean? And they have to admit it isn't. And you can also do microbiological testing. I don't know, Teresa, you don't do much micro testing when you go out into the field.
No, not on a regular basis.
No, too expensive for a start. And they always come back to you saying, oh, you dotted the place or something like that. All right, so they're the tools. So that's what you're going to use today. Now, as I said, you haven't been through 2 years of food safety training and inspection training at Ryerson, so we don't expect you to realise everything. But what you've got to try and do today is go around the kitchen. You can go through all the drawers, you can go through all the, any way you like, I think, and look at the infractions. Now there's obvious infractions here, but what you've got to do is class them as minor infractions, major infractions, or what we call critical and non-critical infractions. Or it could be just a pass, who knows. And then at the end of the exercise, you've got to come up with a sort of judgment saying, am I going to let this restaurant keep going, or am I going to close it down? And I don't think you ever close a restaurant down, so it's extreme, isn't it? Or have you ever done it yourself?
I haven't done it myself, but there have been instances where if we walk in and there's no hot water or there's no running water, then it's an automatic.
So basically, it's a very last step. You know, to close up a facility down opens you up to all sorts of liability, and obviously it's not good for the business. It's not good for your reputation. So you hope not to get that far. So you've all got a list. Now I'll say that list is just an example. You know, you can extend that list. So what you've got to do is complete that list you have today, whatever list you have, and go through this kitchen, look at the violations. Then at the end of that, you can hand it in, and then we'll tell you the answers. As I mentioned to you, you've got all these tools in place, so you can all have a go at the ATP meter if you want. I've got 20 swabs, which should be enough. I've got a UV light. We can turn the lights out when you want to use that. And we've got a thermometer. Only one thermometer, so you'll have to share it a bit, but I'm sure you can share a light. So is there any questions before we start this merry exercise? I don't think there is, so I'm just going to step aside. I'm not going to say a word. I might obviously comment if I can't resist it, but I'll try and keep quiet for sure.
What are the three things we mark it as? Compliant, non-compliant.
Toxic poisonous substances, chloride is close to the
Did you say there was no hot water?
So when you're ready to do your ATP test, if you the swabs are there and the machine's there, I can tell you how to use the machine. So
Yeah, where is it?
Sorry, do you mind me asking what the Ontario Food Premise Regulation, like,
well, it's reasonable. So she's an expert at
it's
that.
just
The
sort of,
regulations that we enforce, it's a convention regulation, and that applies to all retailers, so any places that offer or distribute prepared food to the public.
so would this place,
For
even
this
though it's
purpose,
used for, yeah.
like, this wouldn't be classified as a food premise for us,
Oh,
but
okay.
for your purposes,
Okay, so would this regulation apply today, like in this moment then?
for you guys, yeah.
Oh yes,
For
for
the
sure.
purpose of the,
Yeah, this
the
is
activity,
a
yeah.
like I say, it's like a restaurant in suspended space.
Okay.
Everything here, what you'll find is in a restaurant, down to the dishwasher, which is a special dishwasher. When we say white special, it's more special than your one at home if you have one at home. But so see if you can guess what it is. So one of the first things you do as an inspector is that you normally wash your hands, because washing hands tells you a lot about the facility.
That's non-compliant.
So is waste so you close out of this, tightly fitting the lid, no? Yeah, I'm gonna say minor non-compliance. No, is the lighting bright enough? No, that was, yeah, right.
Oh,
Yeah, and are all chemicals clearly labeled?
Are there like labels on your ground?
This one there is, there's like a wrapper on the side.
Usually see what's from the tap.
Yeah, clip it wire.
You know, how do you adulterate food? Did you read that? It's 13.
That's, yeah, that's something major.
I think in there's
I know, but we're not watching anyone do it, so how do we answer this question?
Assume, I guess. Of course, it's online.
Should we watch it?
People will do stuff.
Videos, like I said, it's like depending on them. They have questions and others, there's more discussion sometimes. We do hands-on things. It's a lot.
Right, where is
Try and make
that?
it time or so.
And well, it's hard to keep it. It's using the same day. So,
Yeah, I suppose one way is if you train up to one person.
No.
Yeah, but you can't answer that.
So it's a minor, but it's still kept separate in the same place it's supposed to be kept.
What that was really showing. The leaders aren't there. The thing is, they can install the leaders in these workers. Like they're this sort of magical thing. And so you could train the work, but it doesn't mean to say they'll actually do it. There was an interesting one 2 years ago. Because we did the first food safety survey. And there was this restaurant that said, this is not doing everything wrong. And they were taking things like the business down the road as well. And it's interesting, different motivations.
Yeah, it's like
For an animal that is practiced not for next to me.
What about you?
Yes.
Which one's? Where did the thought? Yeah, right?
See the grade?
Okay, so, maybe I'll just list them and then we'll do it.
So I don't know if, again, reading to resolve.
Oh, that's okay. It's not one fits all.
Frozen food is maintained, is there anything? Is this thing on?
Is it on? It's always running, yeah.
It's overcharging.
So it's also like $300.
Pardon? Oh.
$300 from the wash there.
Say so.
Yes. Well, it's part of season.
Well, it's just looking for me.
They're like I said, I'm just sort of
Did any of you guys do the ATP test yet? No. Just wanna just do one quick swab right over this.
Yeah, it's marketplace. Yeah, that, I said to him, I thought it was
This is interesting.
I said to him, you know, why don't you take some solid powder to the car park and check the temperature?
What do we swab?
So we're saying compliant.
Is there like a
They've got an interesting,
Oh yeah.
feel like
okay, did you use that?
So I guess he's slowly and then put it back in and shake it and then put it in here.
Should we use this one or is this one used yet?
ATP swab?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you do, you just take out, right, that's the one. So you take out the blue swab,
Okay.
and then you just do the sample where you want to sample.
Fly catcher.
So you've got to be fairly firm with it, you know, because you're trying to pick something up. So you,
Yeah.
that's it.
I can see her.
Yeah, me too.
And then
Yeah,
goes
and
back
you just press it right in. Yeah, just press it down, right down. Yeah. Give it a wave.
Okay.
I like the waving action better. For about 30 seconds. Like this place is a bit too clean for. Oh yeah, you can see it there. And then you just put it into the holder there.
This, the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
neat.
then you close the top. And then you press. Oh yeah, you've done it before, obviously. And then what you look for is the score.
Yeah. So 300 to 1,000 is okay. Anything above 1,000. Nice.
What was it?
93.
Yeah, so you can just hold it in there to stabilise it around. And you also should be looking for a fridge thermometer.
What's the